Lawrence, let me take it to you. Same question, really. How does Jerry's comments and experience compare to the experience you've had coaching in sports?
Yeah, it's almost the opposite, because as a coach, we have failed our guys if every single day we're not practicing our habits. So literally everything that you see on the basketball court has been rehearsed time and time and time again, every single day. And some of the greatest compliments you hear are when teams are in the NBA Finals and they're talking about their execution, whether it's on the offensive or defensive end. Say, we've been doing this every single day since October 1st. Every single day. I was blessed. I learned from a guy named Coach Bob Knight, who's one of the greatest coaches in the history of basketball. And what his number one strength was, master of overkill. Understood repetition, repetition. Now, I think the challenge, and Jerry brought it up, and it's even different for us because teenagers and young men and women in their 20s are learning at a whole different way than when, some of us who are older learn. And so you have to use technology as a weapon. It has to be a weapon. And it's one of those things because communication, it's not by the phone anymore. It's text messaging.
Right.
Video, huge tool. So we incorporate video every single day. And I know one of the speakers earlier talked about using video in terms of learning presentation style. Same thing on the basketball court. There's an old line. The box score accuses, the video indicts. So once you actually see your performance, those excuses that you used the night before no longer work. Yes. But there are a lot of parallels between business and basketball. But I would think number one thing where we separate it is you have to work your habits at the proper intensity level every single day, and then you back it up with video, statistics, all the different analytics that are now available to us.
Lawrence, do you ever get resistance to that degree of practice?
Oh, yeah. That's why you have to have big assistant coaches. But I'll tell you the most important thing, and it was said, I believe, earlier. You have to have, when you talk about modeling and working your habits and showing the right way, and we talk about internal motivation, you have to have people on your team that are showing that example every single day. See, if it's just the command and you do approach, we know that doesn't work, okay? But when you have validation inside the locker room, when you have your players, or in your case, employees, that are setting the example every single day, that's the most valuable teaching tool you can give a new player or someone who comes from a different team. And just to give you a short example, I spent a year with the Boston Celtics. They have a player named Kevin Garnett. Is everyone familiar with him? Yeah. So Kevin Garnett, from an intensity standpoint, is the same way every single day. So any new player, even if it's a veteran player that comes from another team, when they see Kevin Garnett work, they're going to buy in. When I was in New Jersey, we had a guy named Jason Kidd. Same way. Those guys change your culture. And I think it just makes your job as a coach a whole lot easier when it's the guys on the floor, the actual participants, that are setting the example and the tone for how you work and how you react to different situations.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it sounds like for those of us whose playing field is the corporate office, we got to find those people who are doing it right and figure out how to raise their profile enough so that people want to be just like them. Ellie, this next one's for you.
Okay.
What are the most common mistakes that you're seeing organizations make when they're trying to change that mindset and sustain learning?
That's a great question. So I think one thing is the importance of, one big mistake is thinking that there's a one-size-fits-all model for helping adults grow and learn. And so there's a concept that I refer to as developmental diversity, recognizing that as adults we have different needs for support and challenge in order to perform well. And a quick example of how prevalent this can be is I was coaching a leader recently, and he is responsible for giving performance feedback to his employees, just like we all are. And he had been giving the feedback in, quote, exactly the way he liked to get it. And that was direct, no sugarcoating, just give it to me and then I'll put it to use. And one of the things that he was wondering about is, why is it that the people in his organization are not doing what he's telling them to do? And the reason that they weren't, what he came to know, is that the way that he takes in feedback, direct, non-coded, is not necessarily the way that other people do, and that he needed to meet the adults where they were so that they could hear him. So that would be one mistake, thinking that a one-size-fits-all model is appropriate for giving feedback, or also for thinking about the expectations that we hold for the adults in our organizations. Today, when Jay was talking about his children and teaching them to tie their shoes, I was thinking about how often we have expectations for adults to do things like share their perspectives when they're working in teams, to offer ideas that might conflict with authority figures, and how many adults can't do the kinds of things that Stephen Covey talked about, owning one's work, engaging in conflict, taking a stand. In fact, only 20% of the adults in the United States can actually do those things spontaneously without external assistance. And so recognizing, just like when Jay was talking about how parents have patience, how he as a parent and his partner have patience when they're teaching a child to tie their shoes, they don't expect that showing a child once, the child will be able to model that. It takes an appropriate, what I would call, holding environment, a context in which it's safe to make mistakes, safe to express uncertainty, in order for adults to actually learn to perform better. And I guess the third common mistake is around the importance of modeling, which we were just talking about. There's a saying which is, what you're doing is speaking so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. And I have another friend in the audience, Terry Malpia, who always says that the visuals need to match the audios.
Right.
So what you're doing is so important in terms of helping adults grow and learn. And it's really important for all of us, as we know, to be learners and models of all the kinds of things that help us grow. Being vulnerable, being open. There's a leader who had an improvement goal to become more open with the people in his organization. And he had a competing commitment to make sure that he had the final stamp of approval on things. So those two things don't necessarily go together. Yes, so the three big mistakes that I see happen a lot are assuming that a one-size-fits-all model for supporting adult learning is going to work well. We need to differentiate just like we do for children. The second is thinking about the goodness of fit between the expectations that we hold for adults and what they can actually do. And the third is the importance of modeling.
Yeah. If we look at the screen for a minute, I think at least number one on that example connects very directly with that message, that it's probably very natural for many of us to assume that if it feels right for us, it's going to feel right to the person we're talking with or writing to. But boy, is that a common trap.